And, like, if you eat all the reindeers, you're not going to get anything for Christmas, are you? Because how's Santa going to get there?
Hello and welcome to That Med Kid. I'm Holly and thank you so much for joining as always. Today I am joined by a very special guest, Tori, who is actually my medic cousin as well. Welcome, Tori. How are you feeling?
Hi, I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for having me, Holly.
You know, let's just get a little history on you, where you applied for uni, how you're finding medical school, and just give me all the gossip.
So I applied to Oxford, Nottingham, Newcastle and Bristol. I had interviews at all, but obviously Bristol was the top choice. And I'm now in third year, so we're doing a lot more clinical placement, and it's where you realise if you actually want to be a doctor or not, I think.
And have you realised?
I think so.
It's getting there.
Yes. It's a lot better than first and second year. It's a lot less of being sat in lectures and trying to write up a lot of boring theory stuff that you don't really care that much about. Now you're actually, as you say, doing the history taking with the patients. It feels a lot more real.
Yeah, and what do you think has been the most eye-opening moment for you in medical school so far that's made you think, this is crazy that I'm down this path and I'm so excited?
Yeah, I think it's when you see the difference that doctors and medicine can actually have on someone's life.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to patients and they're telling you things that they're saying they haven't even told their wife or their husband, and it's quite a special position to be in, that people can be that honest and that open with you.
Yeah, amazing. And in terms of all the unis you applied to, so Bristol was your top choice?
Yeah, I'd say it was. I'd say I applied to Oxford out of the social pressure of...
Ditto. I applied to Cambridge. I think there was so much pressure in high school.
I think a lot of people think that if you're one of the top ones in your school, then it's just a given that you'll be applying to Oxbridge.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite different for medicine because of their course structure there. It's... Most people go into research, so it's not really as hands-on as how it is at Bristol. So I think that even if you do get in, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'd want to go there for medicine.
So that's amazing. So would you say you're proud to be from Bristol Medical School?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really good. I always recommend it if I hear of anyone who's thinking of doing medicine, and I always try and push them down the Bristol route.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Because Bristol, I think, is so good with the holistic care of the patient aspect.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
They make us do that creative piece in second year.
I'm not quite sure what benefit we get from drawing a picture, but it's a nice change, I guess.
Yeah, it was and this was also kind of graded coursework, right? In first year. And that was very odd. You know,
when they tell us that we're going to get given a grade for doing a piece of artwork in relation to how a patient made us feel or how an experience made us feel, then it's quite a hard one.
Definitely. And in terms of, you're in third year now, you're on the wards, you're not intercalating.
No, I'm not.
So why did you choose not to?
So there were a few courses that I thought looked really interesting. I was looking at childhood studies and global health, but I did take a gap year, and as much as I wanted to intercalate and have another year before clinical and have another year when you were with people who weren't doing medicine, I did feel that I should probably just push on now. And I think the changing course structure was the final kind of thing that tipped me over the edge in deciding not to.
For a lot of us, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my goodness. But you mentioned you took a gap year.
Yeah. So mine was more of a forced gap year. So I applied to Bristol and all of my other universities in... when I was in sixth form, as everyone else does, and I was planning on coming straight away, but then I had a lot of issues, developed anorexia quite badly, and needed to take a year out to recover and to focus on myself before I was in a good enough place that I could go to university.
And I think, like, my goodness, to hear that you like went through that, but the fact that you're here, like, it's so courageous, and like I just respect that so much, like, about you, because
I think
through a lot.
There were definitely moments when it might have been easier just not to go to university, especially when going through interviews when I wasn't in a great space. And I think that a lot of my other universities kind of reflected back that they didn't feel that I was fit to practice, whereas Bristol,
really?
The great thing about them was they said, why not they approved that I could take a year off and get myself fit to practice and then come back and my place would still be waiting.
That's so interesting. So the feedback was you weren't fit to practice?
Yeah, because in order to be fit to practice as part of the NHS, because they assess us on that, I think, yearly at medical school, then you do need to be like of a good enough BMI that you're thinking straight, because I think when it falls that low, then you're not thinking straight and you wouldn't be in a place where you could be looking after patients if you were a doctor.
Yeah, and I think so this is going to be basically the crux of this show's topic, which is eating disorders, because I know that's something that you're super passionate about to spread awareness of.
Yeah, definitely.
And erase the stigma. So we can just get right into it, because I think it's so important. There's a lot to cover. So you are very heavily involved in a new society, so could you just talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I am actually president and I guess founder of Beat This Together Society at Bristol University, and I've been trained by Beat as a Bristol campus rep for Beat, which is the UK's largest eating disorder society. So we originally, a friend and I wanted to set up this society, and we hadn't originally thought of contacting Beat, but when we did, they were so excited about getting involved in what we were doing, and that's when we ended up partnering with them in our society. And we've realised that the best way that we can make a difference for people with eating disorders is not to try and run some sort of support group or anything like that, because they've tried that before at the university and there's so much chance for it to get malicious and for people to be finding others that they can diet with or things like that. So our aim is just to be raising awareness, to be reducing the stigma, and just kind of breaking the taboo around talking about eating disorders, because a lot of people, and especially a lot of adults, as soon as you say the word eating disorders or you bring it up in conversation, people look away, and it's almost like it's some sort of infectious disease and people don't feel that they can talk about it like HIV or something. Whereas if we can start talking about it more, then that's going to be breaking down the eating disorders, because it's going to be breaking down those walls that isolate people so much when they are struggling and they don't feel they can talk about it for fear of being blamed and judged and stigmatized. So that's a big part of the work that we want to be doing. And then alongside that, we're going to be fundraising for Beat, because they put on a lot of support groups and they have some specifically for students, and they do a lot of campaigning and some really great work.
That's so incredible, and I'm so happy you did that, because gosh, mental health issues is something that people, I think definitely this past few years has been quite an issue in the media, and everyone is like, oh, erase the stigma, we're gonna raise awareness. But the mere kind of fact of stating we have to erase the stigma puts a stigma on it. But what I like about what you're doing with your society is that you're not just kind of doing that, but it's more about normalizing it.
Yeah, definitely. It should be part of a normal conversation that people are able to talk about their past experiences with eating disorders, or maybe their current struggles, that they feel that they can just openly bring it up into a normal discussion, and it doesn't have to be in the setting of counselling or whatever. It can literally just be sat around a table with some friends and they bring it up.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was, when I'm talking to adults about it, and they're like, oh, we never had a name for that back in the day. It's just sort of like you have an issue with eating, but it was never like anorexia, bulimia, or body dysmorphia. It's just like there's just, an issue with your eating and your body image. And then the adults tend to be like, oh, you're just kind of medicalizing everything that you can think of, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so that extremity obviously plays into the stigma.
So the whole snowflake generation, that all of the people who are a bit older think that we're all coming out with everything that is wrong with us because we're so fragile and we can't take anything. Whereas I think the reality is it was all there all those years ago. It's just now we're being more open talking about the issues we're having.
I just wanted to get your opinion because obviously with eating disorders there was something that is like a prequel to it, which is the diet culture, and orthorexia, which is something I believe we would be discussing as we planned out, and just wanted to get your opinion on that.
I think especially January was a big month for a lot of issues with people with eating disorders, because January is such a push for people to be dieting, and it's the new year, the new you should be like a slimmer, better version of yourself. And I think obviously that is great for some people, and there are people out there who maybe do need to go on a diet or look after their health a bit more, think a bit more about what they're eating and what they're putting into their bodies. But having such a push for you to always be on some sort of diet, it's just become too much of our culture. It's just become too normal for someone who is of a very healthy weight to be on a diet when it's very unnecessary, to start restricting yourself in any way when you should just be allowing your body to kind of choose what it's having.
You mentioned your gap year and how you were recovering from anorexia. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about, what that was like going through that, and what kind of support you had, and just the recovery after.
So recovering is absolutely horrible. It is a lot harder than having anorexia, because you're not just allowing yourself to be complacent with where you're at each day. You're having to every single day fight a voice in your head, and every single day you're having a battle and you're having to push yourself. And I don't think there was a day in the first few months of when I properly went into recovery that I wasn't just breaking down in tears every single day, because it's that difficult and you're just having to push yourself through it, and you don't really see the light at the end. I remember when I was in recovery, I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it because of what I felt like I'd done to my mum, and I felt like I needed to recover for her and for her sanity, whereas I never felt like I was doing it for me, because I didn't really feel worth it. I didn't feel worthwhile enough when I was at that situation that I deserved to recover. I felt like it would just be an easier option if I didn't recover, and as all the doctors were telling me, I would just die, and I felt like that would actually be an easier option than having to fight through this and fight to recover. But as I say, I had my mum, and she was absolutely incredible. She didn't do everything right, but she never stopped trying. She followed the Maudsley approach, which is where they encourage carers to try and be like a dolphin. So they say that you should be swimming alongside your loved one who's suffering, and you can nudge them when they need to. You can lift them up if they start to sink. You can go ahead and let them swim on their own, or you can drop behind and they can push forward. And having her so involved, I think, really helped. And she's gone on now she's working for Beat as well, and she's being a parent advisor, so she's going to get paired up with a parent who's got a child that's going through the same sort of things, and she can be some advice and some support for them.
That is so, first off, I'm so glad that you were able to get out of that headspace and that mentality, because that just seems so suffocating, and almost like you're looking into a glass box of people that are fine, and you're like, I want to be like that. So I'm just so happy that you were able to get here today.
I think, as you say, it was like the glass box, but there wasn't a door. It didn't feel like it was an option to be normal. You can't even think in your head how you could ever get to that stage where you're just normal, and that's all you want to be. All you want to be is normal, but it just never seems like an option when you're that deep in.
Yeah, and with food and your relationship with that, how do you think it's evolved since 3 years ago?
So I think probably in the last year it's come a lot further, but originally, and I think a lot of people have this in recovering from anorexia, you then get trapped into orthorexia. So orthorexia is where you eat, your weight is stable, your weight is fine, but you're obsessed with clean eating and healthy eating. And so I'd say for a good couple years, I would only pretty much eat fruit and vegetables. And my weight was stable, I was at a good weight, but it was still consuming my mind. I was still always thinking about how can I eat healthy? How can I make sure I've exercised enough? How can I like make sure that I'm still satisfying that element of it without the weight loss and without the really low BMI? But there was still a lot of the other symptoms there. But the health professionals just look at you, they see the weight, they check your BMI, and that's kind of their measure of how well you are. Whereas in reality, things in your head can still be just as difficult and just as tormented, and you're just not losing weight through it because you know that if you do, you'll just get back into that inpatient situation and you're going to be treated medically again. So for me and many of my friends that I know, then a lot of people will in recovery go into orthorexia. You exclude things like fat, things like sugar. You don't allow yourself to have them. Carbs, some people do, some people don't. Maybe just like really healthy carbs. So people might have like quinoa, but they'd never dream of touching white bread or something like that. And to the outward world, you're recovered. You've put on the weight, you're eating, you're able to eat meals with other people normally. But if at that stage I were to go out to a restaurant and they brought me what I'd ordered, but they'd put olive oil on it, I would have completely freaked out. So obviously those tendencies and those anorexic thoughts, they're still there. They're just not pushing through, and you've learned a bit more how to control them. You've learned a bit of how to eat, but it's a very trapping situation to be in, because I think a lot of people can go through anorexia and then live their whole life in orthorexia, but thinking they're recovered.
When it's just literally beginning of recovery. Yeah,
and it's just another form. It's still an eating disorder. It's just taken on another form. I think they're quite mixed, all of the eating disorders. There's a lot of research that shows that it's quite easy to transgress from one to another, but to break out of them as a whole cycle is very difficult.
Wow, so speaking of clean eating.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to say about that. I think like we should spend a little bit of time on that because there are so many facets to what that means. So clean eating, like tell me, for you, how did that definition of clean eating change over the years, or has it at all?
Yeah, so I think it's very different for each people. So originally, when I was probably starting sixth form, I thought I'd do a bit of clean eating, be a bit healthier, and so I started focusing on like a really high protein diet, and I thought that was clean eating. I thought that was great. And then as I started to kind of descend into an eating disorder, it was cutting out, as you say, like all of those food groups that are deemed like unhealthy, when in reality we need a balanced diet and we need all of those food groups. And like I was there wanting to apply to medical school, studying biology, studying chemistry, very interested in nutrition. I knew that in my head. I knew that you needed a mixed food groups. You couldn't just live off fruit and vegetables. But it just doesn't quite transcend through. Like, you know it, but to actually follow through with it when you've got all these other voices in your head telling you different things is quite difficult. So I'd say that then, as I was going deeper and deeper into my eating disorder, clean eating became more about not eating. It became more about how negative could I get my daily calorie allowance by doing exercise and just eating a couple low-calorie foods or just drinking Diet Coke for days on ends, rather than what I guess clean eating was originally created to mean. And it's basically just meant to be eating healthy. You're still eating a variety of foods, but in healthy proportions that are recommended by the NHS and other nutritional advisors.
Yeah, and I think you're so right about that, because clean eating did start with good intentions.
Yeah, definitely.
Just eating wholesome food, minimally processed, and just like fruits, vegetables, carbs, fats, protein, just everything in balance.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's become more than just a diet, but a belief system almost.
Yeah.
So if you do the opposite in air quotes, you're deemed like gross, unhealthy, disgusting, and not clean. You're just dirty. And I think that's so toxic, and it's literally like the latest fad of lack of self-acceptance in this generation to be promoting that kind of clean eating.
Yeah, definitely.
When I was kind of doing a little bit of research into, you know, how clean eating came about and like the different trends and whatever, obviously veganism came up. That was a big thing.
I am vegan.
Yeah,
I am vegan, yeah.
So I want to know your opinion on that and
so
the negative stereotypes that vegans get.
Yeah, I had a friend tell me a couple of days ago that she was going vegan, and she told some of her friends, and their response was, "Are you okay? Like, what's wrong?" They kind of saw
immediately
it as,
think that something's wrong.
Yeah, they saw it as a sort of, maybe she was developing an eating disorder, maybe there was something like that going on. Like, I think it has started to get those sort of connections. I know that a lot of people in recovering from eating disorders go vegan temporarily. They then realise that they were doing it just as an excuse, so that if someone offered them cake, they could say, "No, I can't, I'm vegan." If they were out at a restaurant, "Oh, I can't eat here, I'm vegan." Whereas I think that, so originally for me, I think that was the reason I went vegan. I was like, it'll just make my life a bit easier because I won't have to explain to someone why I'm not going to have the cake they're offering me. I can just say I'm vegan. And quite a few of my friends who went vegan in recovery, post-recovery, are no longer vegan because they've realised that it was just part of another excuse, and it was just part of their eating disorder trying to make another excuse as to why they couldn't eat something. Whereas for me, originally that was why I went vegan, and then as I learned more about veganism and I learned about the kind of animal welfare side of it, I learned about the environmental impact that animals have when we're mass producing them, then that's what's kept me vegan post-recovery, because I've just realised all of these other aspects. So it's not about what I think is healthy for me to eat, it's about what I think is healthy for the environment and what's fair on the animals.
And plus, you know, people think that vegans always like are super healthy, but I think I have a lot of vegan friends where
I
it's
think
just
that's
like
really changing.
Junk food, and it's just like it's so funny, and like how people have a perception. So
I lived with some vegans last year, and I definitely realised that veganism is not always as healthy as you think it is. When there's so many vegan junk foods out there now, it's not just a case of eating fruit and vegetable and unprocessed, super clean in air quotes sort of food. It's so much more than that now.
It's like Oreos.
Yeah, Oreos are great. Love Oreos. It's a lot more of, it's almost like a culture now as well. Like there's the Bristol Vegans group. It's a very active Facebook group. I'm part of it, but I don't post on it. And like Bristol has so many great like vegan junk food restaurants, and you can pretty much get anything you want now in a vegan form, so it's no longer an excuse.
Yeah.
And if you go out to a cafe, especially in Bristol, the chances are they've got vegan cakes.
Always.
They've got vegan hot chocolate, they've got vegan everything. So it can no longer be used as an excuse and as kind of just another way of hiding your eating disorder.
Yeah, and didn't Bristol get named like the top vegan
the top
city
place
in the world?
In the whole world.
Oh my goodness, this is a big world. Bristol's number one.
Yeah, it is a great place to be vegan. It's a lot easier than other cities, I think.
Yeah, and it's like honestly to the point where if I do eat out or if I go somewhere and it's always like it's VJ, not V,
VG.
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 This is very PG, guys. It's like almost kind of half on the menu.
Yeah,
like,
there's so many options.
Yeah,
now,
it's not like it's not a minority.
Yeah, I think restaurants are realising like it's a growing trend for even people to be like flexitarian, and they'll try and be vegan where they can, and then maybe they'll eat the odd bit of meat. But like I'm totally for that, because if that's your way of cutting down your meat consumption and making it better for the environment, better for the animals, then like that's great.
Yeah, I think the animal welfare and environmental impact is, I think that's kind of the right intentions to go into it if you wanted to become vegan. And like you said, people with eating disorders, if they come out of recovery or they're, you know, developing a disorder, and they turn to becoming vegan as an excuse, like you said, that can be quite toxic. But obviously it evolves a lot for people.
Yeah, I think it's really hard though, because it does have two sides to it. So when I was really suffering and struggling of, am I going to be able to go through recovery, all of that, I read an article that was written by a girl who'd really suffered with anorexia, and veganism had been her way out. It had helped her recover because she'd felt that everything she was eating was good for the planet, it was good for her body, so she felt comfortable and happy to eat it. And so I think that's what's like was my first thing where I thought, okay, I'll give that a go, because if I know that what I'm eating is good for me and good for the environment and kind of good for future generations by helping preserve the environment, then maybe I won't feel so guilty every time I eat.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely something that I think helped me take the first few steps. And then, as you say, now I've just kind of learned about all of the other impacts that I had no idea about when I first went vegan.
That's amazing. Like, I just love how, you know, you've come out of such like a dark place.
Yeah.
And you've come out completely like bright and shining, and you're able to impact other people with this new society, and just your story and sharing that. Vegans do get a lot of negative comments.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of bad press.
In terms of vegan food, a lot of people tend to think it's very limited. So I just wanted to, like, you know, for you to dispel that.
It's definitely not limited. I mean, you can make everything vegan now. So you can make vegan meringues using the liquid from a tin of chickpeas.
Ooh. Have you done that?
Yeah, it works just the same as egg whites.
Oh, amazing.
And for students, it's a very cheap way to make a pavlova or something like that for dessert.
Oh my gosh.
A tin of chickpeas is like 50p. You can use the chickpeas to make your hummus, and you can have that as your main. Then you can use the liquid and some sugar, and you've got meringues.
And you've got your dessert.
It's great.
Oh.
You can make vegan omelettes out of chickpea flour.
Oh, chickpea is just a savior.
Chickpeas are
hero.
great. I think a lot of vegans have a stigma that they will literally just sit there eating chickpeas out the tin. And
I mean, even I do that sometimes.
Whilst I would say that's
vegan.
not true, yeah, it happens. They're a great source of protein, and I just absolutely love them. But you can make pretty much everything now, and I do like a fortnightly dinner with my lacrosse team where they come round and we do like quite a big vegan feast, and I'll cook for everyone, and everyone was always quite amazed at how I've managed to make things vegan. But it just takes a little bit more effort, and sometimes not even that, because I think it's a lot more effort to have to separate a load of egg whites and egg yolks than it is to just drain off the chickpeas and you've got your egg white liquid.
That's true.
It's magical.
That is such a good hack. Are there any more like vegan hacks like that?
Oh, some vegan hacks. I think the biggest vegan hack is aquafaba, so that's the chickpea liquid, because you can just make so many things from it. You can make cheesecakes, you can pretty much make anything you can think of. Cashews, they're another great one. You can blend them up to kind of get the creaminess that you might get from dairy otherwise.
Oh.
You can make cashew cheese, so if you want to make homemade vegan cheese, you can do that using cashew nuts.
Have you done that?
I haven't yet, but it's on the list.
Get on it. And then let me try
I made a cashew carbonara. That was very good.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it's so much better for you because it's like you're getting all of those healthy fats and stuff from the chickpeas, from the cashews rather, and they just go super creamy. It's lovely.
That sounds so delicious.
Nutritional yeast, if you want something to taste a little bit cheesy, you add in some nutritional yeast. And for us vegans, it's exciting because they put B12 in it, and we need our B12.
Folic acid and all that.
Being a medic, we know all about that.
I actually bought a nutritional yeast last year because I remember I was reading about it and its benefits and how vegans use that as an alternative to cheese sometimes. And I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian, I just eat everything, but I was like, I kind of want to see what it's like. Yeah. So I tried it out, and like I just love nutritional yeast now. Yeah. It tastes so. I put on everything.
Yeah, you just add a bit, and then you're like, oh, by adding a bit of nutritional yeast, then like this is all nice and healthy. It's great.
Yeah, I just like spoon it out. I'm like, oh, lovely, love this. And I put it on like non-vegan stuff, which I feel a bit like bad about because it's like it's not
playing on your conscience.
Yeah, it's not balanced at all. Like a clash, but it's amazing. And I have made a lot of healthier swaps because like I read up a lot about veganism. Yeah. And because I wanted to look past all that negative press that they get, because I'm pretty sure it comes from a good kind of scientific basis. and there's a lot of controversial studies out there, but ultimately we can't deny how good it is for the animals and the environment.
Although I did see a Bristruth a few days ago that was saying that new studies think that plants have feelings too. And they said, vegans, explain yourselves. Plants can feel emotions too. So I'm not quite sure where to go with that one.
Oh goodness, that sounds very philosophical. It's like, if you feel, does that make you live? Like,
that's a hard question.
I don't know.
Answer.
I know some people who live but they don't feel.
Definitely,
you know
people
who
like
you
that.
are. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. Bristruths is just like a treasure trove of ridiculous memes and confessions.
If you ever want to entertain yourself for a few hours, you could probably sit there on Bristruths.
Yeah. And honestly, it's such a good procrastination tool.
Yeah.
To go onto that page.
It's actually a great way though to try and connect with others, because we saw a post on there that was someone saying, oh, maybe someone at this uni should set up a group for eating disorders because our uni is so lacking and so like doesn't have any knowledge about the topic. And so then we were able to comment and be like, hi, we've just done this.
Lo and behold.
It's a really new society, so like we don't have much kind of advertising out, but send us a message and you can be part of it. So like it is quite a good way to try and connect with random strangers.
That is so lovely. And I think that's a trend because there's another group now. It's called Subtle Asian Traits. And it's like over 1 million members. It's a closed group. So initially to get in, and you still have to do it now, you have to only be invited by someone who's in it.
Wow.
So it's like exclusive.
Secretive.
But not really, because everyone is in it now, like who's Asian. And then they branched that off and then they made Subtle Asian Dating. And then they just they advertise their friends, like they put on like their best Insta photos and they'll be like age
amazing.
21 and pros, and then the cons are always so sweet, like super super clingy, so we'll always be there for cuddles and stuff. I'm like, is that a con? Like
depends who you ask.
So I really like this interconnectedness.
I think the big question is, have you got on a date yet through this website?
Well, I do know that from a lot of success stories on that page.
Really?
People have. And it's like, I'm definitely not going to go on that. To go on a date through that. It's a bit weird, I'll admit.
It's a little bit desperate, but, desperate measures.
Yeah, it's always the friends who do it, for each other. It's never someone who goes on like, hey, I'm 20 and I'm a
and I'm looking for someone.
Yeah, these are my pros. It's like a resume of like
these are my cons.
Yeah, it's like I have no cons. I'm a perfectionist. Blah, blah, blah. Like, but it's amazing, and like I love that. So, but that just took a tangent. But basically, very interconnected. And so many unis have this thing where it's like Bristruths, or it's
it's a great way that you can reach people that you would have never otherwise come into contact with.
Yeah, like you said, someone posts about eating disorders, and then they ask, you gave.
Yeah.
And it's so amazing. So what can we, expect from the society? Any future events that are coming up?
So next week is Eating Disorder Awareness Week, so it's probably going to be one of our busiest weeks of the year, which isn't ideal that it's so early on for us being a group.
Right.
Because we're still quite low on members, and a lot of people haven't heard about us yet. But we're running a lot of events that we're going to try and spread the word. So on Sunday we've got a walk and talk where we're going to take a walk around Clifton. It gives people a chance to meet each other and have a chat, but we're also going to be talking to the general public and trying to get them more aware of the fact that it's Eating Disorder Awareness Week, because I think the average person probably has no idea. And then on Monday we're going to go in to the dental hospital and give talks to dentists dental students, about eating disorders and about how much it impacts their training as well, because every eating disorder does, but especially like bulimia has a really big impact on your teeth, and yet they're taught nothing about management for that and what they should be advising their patients and stuff like that. And one of the girls in our committee is a dental student, so she's really keen to head that up.
Yeah, so the research is also kind of valid in a way.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many papers on it. and I think it's part of her project this year, so she's really passionate about it.
That's so cool.
And then later in the week, we've got a club night at SWX.
Oh, fun.
We've got a climbing session at Block where we're going to encourage people to wear crazy socks and say "sock it" to eating disorders.
Oh, that is so great. Oh my goodness.
We've got a bake sale where we're going to fundraise for Beat. And on Wednesday, me and our vice president were travelling to London to talk in Parliament to MPs about how they need to... Yeah, we're talking in Parliament.
Okay, tell me more. What is this? You mentioned this casually. No.
So Beat are running a lobby day where you invite your local MP and you get a chance to sit down face to face, one-on-one with your MP and tell them the issues. So tell them about how when you turn 19 and you're receiving treatment, everything changes, and because there's different guidelines for children and for adults, and they're putting money into the children's section and nothing in for the adults. We need to tell them about how clinical commissioning groups are getting to choose how they spend their money, and although they're given money to spend on eating disorders, they're not spending it because they don't see them as a priority. And yet anorexia has the highest mortality rate of any mental health disease. And we need to tell them about how medical students, the average medical student gets 1.8 hours of training on eating disorders in their entire training. And yet, if they become a GP, they could be the person that is seeing someone struggle, and yet they're not knowing because they don't know how to spot the signs. They don't know how to read blood tests to interpret whether this person is like struggling with something like bulimia, because you can see that on the blood test, but we're not being given the training, so nobody knows how to do it. And so these are all issues that we want to raise with the MPs, because they've got quite a big say. They can be signing motions. There's a motion at the moment which we want them to sign, which is to remove the minimum weight required to treat, because why should you have to drop to a minimum weight before you can receive treatment for an eating disorder? That seems absolutely crazy, that it's almost encouraging you, it's challenging you to keep losing more weight, because otherwise you're not even seen as having an eating disorder, when there's actually 14 recognised signs of an eating disorder, and weight is just one of them. So why are they basing all of their treatment around this one sign when there's so many others?
And that's exactly the point, because it's not supposed to be about like body image or just like the weight that's superficial. And that's how the disease and the disorder arises. And the fact that they're kind of exacerbating that, that's ridiculous.
They're telling you, no, we're not going to treat you because you're not thin enough yet, so you don't have an eating disorder.
Okay, you rock into Parliament and you show them what you're made of. 1.8 hours of training.
Yeah,
that's
in 5 or 6 years of medical school.
That is honestly ridiculous.
6 medical schools in the UK that don't provide any training whatsoever. And then the average is 1.8.
Which medical school? Obviously, they need to be able to pick up on the signs, but on the other side, you know, groups like you guys and your society make this environment where people feel safe enough to speak up about it. Because ultimately, if you don't want to change, it's quite difficult for you to think you need help in a way.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, it has to come from you when you actually want to change.
Yeah.
But I think in the early stages where you're starting to fall into it, if someone could catch you before you fall that deep, then it might prevent you suffering as much as some of us did.
Yeah, it's like a two-way thing, so you really need that relationship. And it just has to like marry together, and that's why it's such a difficult issue to tackle, but you are doing so much for that. And I am so happy, and I'm so excited. I'm like a big fan. What's your Facebook page?
So our Facebook page is Beat This Together. If you type that in, then it should come up for you. And if you want to join our society, then you can find us on the SU. It's only £4 membership for the whole year.
Wow.
And we're going to be running an event where we do some mindfulness pottery painting, and we're going to give all of our members £5 to spend on that. So
that's amazing.
You're gonna have to pay £4, but you're getting £5 back, so it's a pretty good deal.
That's a really good deal.
Yeah.
Welcome back. This is the very last kind of lightning round of facts I'm going to give to you. So according to a study done by James Cole, who's an archaeologist at the University of Brighton, he had a paper that was published in Scientific Reports that calculated the calories of a human body. So if you ever want to indulge in cannibalism...
So if you were going to eat your friend.
Yes.
Good to know.
Good to know. So the heart has 651 calories. And
How did he come to this conclusion?
So
What's
he
the science?
He had 4 male bodies, and he basically just did loads of energy expenditure calculations and stuff. Yeah, so
That's a pleasant thought, isn't it?
yeah, and it just kind of makes you wonder about the ethics, and cannibalism is a whole nother issue.
I feel like that would be for another time, to talk
Yeah,
about
yeah.
cannibalism.
But the heart, 600 calories, just if you need to know, and the organ with the most protein is your skin. So if you're looking for gains,
eating skin is just a little bit disgusting, I
it's
think.
probably very rubbery,
Yeah.
like eating elastic bands.
And think what it's come into contact with.
So I don't really know if it's still there, but basically there's this ice cream place inside Namja town, which is like this indoor amusement park in Tokyo, and they do a lot of interesting ice cream flavors, one of which is raw horse meat.
Oh, that just sounds revolting.
And then the second flavor...
Is it popular?
Would
Would they be making it if people weren't buying it?
Well, Japanese people are quite eccentric when it comes to food. The other
Quite.
flavor is squid ink.
A bit more normal.
A bit more normal?
Yeah, because you go to you could go to a restaurant here and you could get squid ink pasta and squid ink risotto, so why not squid ink ice cream,
I mean, you'd want vanilla with a little drop of squid ink.
Whether it would taste any different to vanilla.
That's
It's
true.
probably a debate. The horse meat one, but then again, as you say, in Japan, I mean, all of their flavours of Kit Kats.
Oh my goodness.
They go for it. Mm.
Oh, and with the raw horse meat though,
That'll be the next Kit Kat.
That's
Have a little picture of a horse.
You know
in the
what? I'd
front.
honestly probably try it, and I'd feel guilty the whole way through.
Why would you try that?
Exactly.
That's disgusting.
I feel very guilty confessing this, but during Christmas, my sister went to Oslo, and she brought back reindeer and moose salami, and okay, we felt very guilty.
Could you not
about that.
think of the beautiful little reindeer faces when you were...
did. I did when I was eating it. So we cut,
You could still eat it.
Yeah, so we cut it up into tiny slices, and all of us had one slice in front of us, and there's 5 of us in our family just staring at it and then my mom, because it's during Christmas, brings over this Christmas ornament, which is a reindeer, and she puts it in the middle, just a reminder. I was like, what is this? This is making it worse.
To be honest, I'm quite an advocate that if you can eat a pig, why can't you eat any animal? I think if people are okay to eat animals, then it's just been normalised into our culture that we eat cows and pigs and chickens. If you can eat them, then you should be able to eat any animal, really.
I think there is that cultural difference and geographical difference. Obviously in Oslo, maybe there are more reindeer, so they feel it's okay. But I don't know, it felt very wrong.
They're just so cute.
Yeah, I know. I just
They're
thought
just
about
so
their
adorable.
snouts.
And if you eat all the reindeers, you're not going to get anything for Christmas, are you? Because how's Santa going to get there?
I've tried horse meat. I feel very guilty saying that too. See,
it's all coming out today, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Oh, it's confession. Tori, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It was very insightful, and your society beat this together. You can find you guys on Facebook.
Yeah.
Are there any more social platforms we should know about?
You can find us at Instagram. We are at BTT Bristol Uni.
You sound unsure.
President. I am unsure. President, not...
And founder.
and founder. Not in charge of social media, though.
That's true. As
not
a
my role.
president, you need to delegate.
Exactly.
That's the excuse we'll get.
And you can email us at bttbristoluni@gmail.com. That's one I am sure about. If you have any questions, drop us an email.
Yeah, and if when they email you, can they just like be like, oh, I don't know where to get help kind of thing, and can you point
Yeah,
us?
definitely. We've created a resource that we're trying to circulate around the accommodations at the moment that has all of the help services available in Bristol, so the ones available to you through the university and the ones that are available just as Bristol services that are standalone. So if anybody wants access to that, then just drop us an email and we can send that straight out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and looking forward to all the events, and good luck with everything that happens in society. I'm sure
It's
just
going
like...
to be an exciting week.
Yes, it will.